It takes a criminal to know criminal behavior. And unfortunately or fortunately, in this matter, I have a little experience in that. I was on the street for over 20 years, and every day, people, just about every day of my life during those 20 years, I was involved in some form of criminal activity. So I understand it. I was arrested some 18 times. Like I said, went to trial 5 times. I did 8 years in prison. I defended my father in different parole hearings and appellate hearings many, many times. I understand the criminal justice system. I understand what it is to be a criminal. I've been around criminals most all of my earlier part of my life, so I get it. So I think I am experienced enough and qualified enough to talk about these two men, what they're facing now, and let's get into it. But again, I want to make it clear, as far as I'm concerned, both of them are not criminals at this point. They've just been alleged to have done certain acts that would be criminal.
I walk in redemption.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give God all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving for that. Just quickly, before we get into anything, London, here I come. I'm going to be heading over there, doing some media for my upcoming tour. Very excited about it. I think I'm going to be on Piers Morgan. That should be interesting. He's a little rough. He's going to try to rattle me a little bit, I'm sure, but hey, all is well. I think I can handle it. Secondly, very quickly, I have to thank all the people that have jumped on board Franzese Wine. We are offering an opportunity to become an ambassador, and the response has been amazing. So good. We're going to be offering that again to another group of people. This Friday, there's going to be a Zoom call, okay, with me and my partner. Jump on Franzese Wine. By the way, this Areni is flying off the shelf. People are enjoying it. It's great. I'll get into it a little bit more at another time, but if you want to be an ambassador for Franzese Wine, go to opportunity.franzesewine.com. I think there's going to be a link on this video, and register for the Zoom this Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Going to be great. People are loving it. The response we got is overwhelming, so we're going to do it another time. We'll see how that response goes. If people keep asking about it, we might keep opening it up. Opportunity.franzesewine.com. This Friday, 5 p.m. Zoom call with yours truly and my partner. You're going to love this opportunity. People are jumping all over it, and I got to tell you something. We're experiencing some great growth in the wine business. You know, you saw the keyword criminal. You got Donald Trump on one side, you got Joe Biden on the other side, you got a question mark on top. Criminal. Now, let me tell you this, first of all, before we start. Neither one of them technically are criminals at this point. They haven't been convicted of anything. Obviously, Donald Trump has been charged with a lot, okay? He's got 4 indictments pending. We're going to get into that. But neither one of them are technically criminals at this point because they haven't been convicted of anything. You could be charged in a crime. I always believe innocent until proven guilty. I said that 100 times with Andrew Tate. Some people got upset with me, but I don't base criminality based upon, evidence or alleged evidence that's presented by the government. Okay, I know that because I've been to trial 5 times. Each time resulted in an acquittal or a dismissal or a hung jury. So people can present evidence. You're innocent until proven guilty. Here in the United States, for sure. I don't care where it is, through any part of the world. That's how I look at it. So neither of these two men are criminals at this point. But let me tell you this. It takes a criminal to know criminal behavior. And unfortunately or fortunately, in this matter, I have a little experience in that. I was on the street for over 20 years, and every day, people, just about every day of my life during those 20 years, I was involved in some form of criminal activity. So I understand it. I was arrested some 18 times. Like I said, went to trial 5 times. I did 8 years in prison. I defended my father in different parole hearings and appellate hearings many, many times. I understand the criminal justice system. I understand what it is to be a criminal. I've been around criminals most all of my earlier part of my life, so I get it. So I think I am experienced enough and qualified enough to talk about these two men, what they're facing now, and let's get into it. But again, I want to make it clear, as far as I'm concerned, both of them are not criminals at this point. They've just been alleged to have done certain acts that would be criminal. So let's do Donald Trump first. That's easy. You have to say this, people, like him or hate him, he is probably the most investigated investigated person in the last 4, 5, 6 years. Remember this, let's go back. He was impeached twice. You had the entire Mueller investigation that went on for months and months and months. The impeachments came up empty. The Mueller investigation came up empty. Let's face it, there really wasn't much there. The allegations were there. They went through the process, but they came up empty both times. Now, he's got 4 pending indictments, one of them being a RICO indictment in the state of Georgia. That seems to be falling apart because of some illicit behavior between the prosecutor and the district attorney, or whatever she calls herself, that appointed that prosecutor. There's something going on there. Who knows where that case is going to go? We don't know that. Aside from that, he's got 3 other indictments, one having to do with election interference, the other having to do with his classified documents that were at his house, that allegedly he took and he shouldn't have taken, whatever it is. I'm not going to get into all the details of that. And he's got civil cases pending. This guy has been investigated every which way you can possibly investigate him. So far, I got to call him the Teflon Don. I mean, we knew John Gotti was the Teflon Don, but we got to call Donald Trump the Teflon Don, because what's happened? Okay, since he's been indicted, his popularity has grown. And the reason for that, people, is very simple. There are a lot of people that believe that Donald Trump has been targeted by this administration, that the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the White House have targeted Donald Trump because he is a political enemy. For some reason, there is an overwhelming amount of hatred for Donald Trump from people on the other side. Quite honestly, I don't get it. Is he the worst guy that ever got into the White House? Well, let's review that. When he was in the White House, what did he do during that time that was so bad? Let me point out what I thought was ridiculous, not bad. I didn't like his tweets. I thought he was divisive. I thought he should have been more presidential for sure. Those are my complaints with Donald Trump. I think he was petty at times, calling Nancy Pelosi names and doing all this. I didn't like any of that. I'm going to be real honest with you. If I were advising Donald Trump, I would tell him, Donald, stop. You're working for the American people. Focus on your job. Now, in his defense, I do understand he is a New Yorker. He fights back the best way he knows how. Like I said, this is his way. This is what he does. But let's separate that for a moment, okay, from the job he did as president. You have to admit to a couple of things. Through all the chaos that was during his administration, did he cause the chaos? I guess there's going to be different opinions on that. The way I see it, it was the Democrats that were constantly going after him, that caused the chaos. I mean, the Mueller investigation, the impeachments, everything this guy did was under a microscope, and everybody attacked him from the other side all the time. So that's where the chaos was. It was pretty hard for him to govern and focus. Now, I heard sometimes his style wasn't that great. He angered people. He got upset with people. They said there's times when he wasn't loyal. I don't know all of that. I'm not an insider in the White House, but those are some of the things that were said at the time. But separate that again from the job he did as president. Were our borders secure? Yes, they were. We didn't have an immigration crisis out of control like we have now, that even Joe Biden, even though he caused it, is finally admitting that we have a porous border and that there are a lot of things going on that shouldn't be going on. We know that, okay? I've spoken to Border Patrol agents. The situation down there is terrible, and I think now all of Americans are starting to realize that, even in the blue states, governors, mayors, people that have to handle these immigrants pouring into their states, they're overwhelmed and they can't deal with it. Unfortunately, they're not going right to the source. Joe Biden, who could immediately shut it down, he can close the border. We know that. He opened it up, okay? He reversed Donald Trump's policies, I think, on the first day he was in office. Okay, but let's go back to Trump. Trump had a secure border. Where was inflation? Very low. Got to be honest, compared to what's happening now. Now we're only talking about the job he did as president, not his personality, not likes and dislikes, just the job he did as president. Those two issues, we have to say, a lot better than they are today. The pandemic came along, and I think it did disrupt things, obviously, for him. And maybe his last term was kind of not as good as we would have wanted it to be. But hey, there was a pandemic. and he got hit with it. And so it was kind of rough at that time. I'm not making excuses for him, but we got to admit that's what it was. Our foreign enemies, were they held at bay? Yes, they were. Got to admit to that. They were afraid of him. They said, hey, you know what? We're not going to mess with Trump. We didn't have wars. We didn't have anything going on. So during his 4 years, would you have to say that the country was in a little better shape than it is today? I think so. Like him, hate him, whatever. Okay? And I'm not going to talk about the next 4 years, whether he's going to be president or not. We're just talking about the situation now. But is he a criminal yet? Again, I say no, but he's got 4 indictments, and we'll see how they play out. You know, I'll be honest with you, I did a little research on some of the cases. I'm not thrilled with what I see. Now, let me tell you why. Okay, when I was indicted on a racketeering case by Rudy Giuliani, I was in court for several months. I was a lead defendant. I had 15 co-defendants. At the end of the day, I was acquitted after a jury was out for about 7 days, if I'm not mistaken. And I was acquitted in that case. They threw allegations at me. They said at the time that I funded a loan sharking operation through a leasing company that I was involved in. And the jury didn't believe it. They didn't believe the witnesses, and I was acquitted. So that's why I'm very reluctant to say I believe anything until I see what the result is and see what all the evidence is. Okay, but that's Donald Trump. So we have to deal with that. Is Donald Trump going to get convicted? Is he going to end up in jail? Is he going to be our president? Who knows at this point? But why is he so popular? Again, I'm going to say it. Because people believe that this current White House, this current Department of Justice, this current FBI is targeting Donald Trump as their political enemy because they hate him. And I don't believe that Biden wants to run against him. Forget what anybody else says. I don't believe that. Because look, he had 75 million people, somewhat, I think that was the number, that voted for him. And now people are rallying around him because they don't like what they see that's going on at this point. So let's not call him a criminal. Let's just say he is under indictment. There are allegations out there, and we'll see what happens. Now, let's switch over to Biden for a minute. Now, people, look, I know a lot of people are going to say that I'm biased in favor of Donald Trump. Look, I'm not hiding anything. I thought he was a good president as far as his policies. His policies were good for the United States, and I think that anybody that wants to admit that and take the personality thing out of it, I think you have to admit that. During his 4 years in office, the United States was in pretty good shape, both foreign and domestically. So yes, I liked his policies. I already went over the things that I didn't like. But let's go to Biden now. I have a pretty good understanding of a racketeering, a RICO indictment. I had 3 of them. 2 federal RICO indictments and 1 state, the state of Florida. I understand the statute. I had to defend it 3 times. I know it inside out and upside down. I want to go to Biden's situation. There are allegations against him. There is continuing conversation about possibly impeaching him. And I want to tell you this, a couple of things. You see the evidence that's been presented so far, the allegations that presented so far against Hunter Biden. His laptop, he's been indicted a couple of times. We know all of that. I'm not going to review it all. But let's go to Joe Biden. My problem with Joe Biden is that he's totally dishonest. He's dishonest. He doesn't play straight with the American people. That's my real problem with him. Okay, he lies, straight out lies. He's lying about his relationship with his son. There is no way that he wasn't involved with his son on some of these things. Once again, I'm not saying that he's guilty of this point of criminal activity, but what I will say, based upon what's been presented so far, what has been presented so far, the suspicious bank records, the 18 or so, there might be more than that, there might be 20 shell companies tied to these suspicious banking reports. I have a big familiarity with that because I had 18 shell companies myself, and I know what they were used for. They were to collect tax money that I was defrauding from the government, okay? This is the same setup as far as I can see based upon my experience. Why? Because these shell companies, they had no employees, they had no product that they were selling, They had no brick and mortar establishment where anybody can go and say, hey, what is this company all about? And they really didn't provide a service other than what has become obvious to me, the service being peddling influence. Because Joe Biden was the vice president during this time. Hunter Biden, we can see, what was he? You know, to be just nice to him and not to be too disrespectful, you know, he had a severe drug problem. He had no experience in any of the companies that he was presenting himself with. His expertise, we still don't know what it is. We have no idea. What was he selling? Why did he get this money? And how much money was it? Over $20 million from China, from Ukraine, from different companies that went where? Went into the bank accounts of the Biden family. Even Joe Biden's granddaughter got money. For what? What did she do? Now people will say, well, Joe Biden himself didn't get any money. Of course not. Why would he? He's the vice president. He doesn't want to be seen that he's taking money from China or from a foreign entity that his son was involved with. Okay, so let's keep going. Joe Biden has continuously denied any knowledge of any business relationships with his son. However, what do we have? We have the laptop that has emails showing differently that Joe Biden was involved with Hunter Biden's partners and his business associates. We have the text messages that show the same. We have a phone call where Joe Biden was sitting next to his son Hunter when Hunter was talking to somebody and he told him, you better give us X amount of dollars. I think it was $5 million. And that $5 million came in within a day or two. And he said, I have my father sitting here next to me. What does that mean? Was Joe Biden, you know, I know he was saying he has dementia, but that works both ways. If you want to say he had dementia during this call, well, what about the dementia he's having now? Okay, we have the testimony of whistleblowers. Understand that. These are ex-IRS agents that are connecting Joe Biden to Hunter Biden, who claimed they were stymied in the investigation by Joe Biden's Justice Department, okay, to take this further and really try to connect the dots. They were told not to. We have testimony from Hunter Biden's associates who said they met with Joe Biden several times, and there's records of that, both in the White House and in other places. So it's obvious that Joe Biden is lying based upon a voluminous testimony and voluminous evidence that's been presented so far. Now, based upon what I see, I am telling you right now, there is enough allegations and enough evidence presented at this point, definitely to indict both Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in a RICO case, that they were taking money from foreign entities and the only thing they were selling was the influence of the vice presidency. That's it. It's obvious that there could be an indictment. I'm not saying he'd be convicted. They should have their day in court, present their evidence against it, or, you know, refute the evidence that's presented towards them. But there is absolutely enough evidence at this point to warrant a RICO indictment. And I'll stand on that. I don't care if anybody wants to dispute me on it. Let's go. I know that for a fact. And like I said, I don't like the fact that the President of the United States continues to lie. I don't like that. And he lies to us about this all the time. And of course he's supporting his son. He has to support his son because he was partners with him as far as I can see, based upon what's been presented so far. He has to. And we also see money going into Joe Biden's bank account. Now they're trying to, you know, say it was for something else, but there's no loan documents, there's nothing. I mean, look, is this alleged criminal activity? It is. Okay, I have to say it is. So you have possibility of criminal activity with Joe Biden, the possibility of criminal activity with Donald Trump, and these are the two people that one is president and the other one's running for president. Has this ever happened in the history of our country? No, never has. And probably never will again, although a bad precedent is being set, people. And I'm going to say this, and believe me, this is the biggest problem that I see in the United States at this point. We have one political party that is absolutely, you have to be blind, delirious, okay, and just in total denial not to see that they are weaponizing both the Department of Justice, the FBI, and whatever other agency they can to go after their political enemies. Let me remind you again, remember when Hunter's laptop came out by the New York Post, they found it? What happened? The FBI and 52 ex-CIA agents signed a statement that that laptop was illegit and that it was Russian misinformation. They all lied. They all lied to protect the White House and Joe Biden. Did they not? Yes, they did. Absolutely. Why? Because it's come out that that's not true. The FBI knew it was legit. And these people just lied. So what does that mean? It means that they are weaponizing, their assets to go against their political enemies. They wanted to suppress that, just before the election because they didn't want Donald Trump to win. This is very dangerous. We know that the FBI at one point went and tried to suppress information with Twitter and Facebook. We know that. It's all come out. One last thing. We know that Donald Trump was accused of having classified documents that he shouldn't have had or that he wouldn't present when he was asked, whatever the details of the case were. Okay, he's being prosecuted. Let's see what happens. I'm not standing up for it at this point. But remember, Joe Biden had the same. Have you heard anything about it? Well, you're going to say, well, he came right away and he gave him up. Yeah, but you're missing one thing. As vice president, he didn't have the privilege or authority to have those classified documents in the first place. He shouldn't have had them, but he did have them. But that's been silenced. We haven't heard a word about that. There's no indictment, there's no allegation, nobody's looking at him, nothing. So Joe Biden is being accused of criminal conduct. He's the president of the United States. Let me go back to Trump for a minute. I think one of the most serious issues is this alleged insurrection. Did he act 100% appropriate on that day? Probably not. Probably not. But they've been careful not to name it an insurrection. He didn't do anything to stop it, maybe they're saying, although from what I was told or what we know, he did ask Nancy Pelosi to have the National Guard there. She chose not to have it for whatever reason. But we don't know if it's an insurrection or not. Again, this evidence is going to come out. He's being accused of this criminal conduct. So I'm not standing up for it at this point in time. I know what a lot of people are saying, these indictments are all nonsense or whatever. A lot of people on the other side are saying, the allegations against Joe Biden are nonsense. So you have both sides supporting the person that they like. But the bottom line is both of them are being accused of criminal conduct. We have a president and a possible candidate for the presidency, both being accused of criminal conduct. We're making history, people. This has never happened before. But I want to bring up one last thing on this subject, and then, I'll put it to rest right now. And you know what? This is important stuff, people. I know it's politics. Yes, I know it's politics. Some people don't like it. But these are important issues that are affecting our lives. Do we understand this? These are the leaders of our country, the parties that have control over us. This is very, very important stuff. We have to pay attention to it. We have to, have a voice in it. It's important. Let me say one last thing. What I think the biggest problem in this country is the media. The media is not what it used to be. It used to just report the news, good, bad, or indifferent. CBS, ABC, NBC, CNBC, Fox News, report the news. We don't want to hear everybody's opinion. We don't want you to cover up for any other. We want to hear it the way it is. But when you have a portion of the media that's protecting one candidate or one person or another, it's no good because then we don't get the truth. This is the biggest problem. We have to demand that our media outlets tell the truth and report the news, what's really going on. Communist countries, it's all propaganda. They control the news outlets. They control the media. They let the community, the population, the people hear what they want them to hear. And that's not good. And that's happening here in the United States. We have to put the lid on this. It's so important. And so please pay attention to this, people. I don't know how to stress it any more than I do. And some people, listen, I have a voice, I have a platform. A lot of people are responding to this, so I keep talking about it. So let's see what happens. First time in history, we have a president accused of criminal activity that probably is going to be impeached. My prediction is he will be impeached. Is he going to make it, to the general election? Who knows? A lot's going to happen in the next several months. Donald Trump, is he going to end up in prison in a jumpsuit, or is he going to end up back in a suit in the White House? Who knows? But the next couple of months are going to be very interesting. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a war. We're going to hear a lot of junk from both sides. It's going to be something that none of us want to deal with. It's going to be chaotic. And we have so many issues going on in this country that really need attention from strong leadership. So I hope whoever it is you decide to put in office. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If it's Joe Biden, you better think twice. Think of what's going on in this country right now. Think of your southern border. Think of high inflation. Think of all the things that are going on. Think of the problems that we have with our foreign, enemies, with Iran, with China, with Russia, with all this stuff that's going on. Think about it and say to yourself, who is best going to control what's going on here and protect the interests of the United States and all of its citizens? That's it. That's it for today, my friends. How do I always leave you? Same way, not going to change. Be safe. Please be safe, because we have a lot of people coming across the border. We don't even know who they are. We also have illegal immigrants getting on a plane that don't need to show any identification. Do you realize that? That's the newest thing. They don't have to show ID. And no matter how they try to cover this up, that's the fact. We don't know where these people came from. We don't have a good vetting process with them. Okay, that's been known. But they're allowed to get on a plane without an ID. I can't even understand that. I know what I go through every time I go through, security. But hey, it's another thing for us to be concerned with. So be safe, be healthy, take care of yourself. I really mean this. God bless not only every one of you and your families, but God bless and help America. People, we need some powerful prayer. I'm telling you right now. And yes, I'll see all of you next time. Take care.